In life, there's three basic kinds of debt. There is financial debt, there's spiritual debt, and there is time debt. Now, let me explain what I mean here. Financial debt is when you get in over your head. You spend money you don't have, and next thing you know, you are a slave to your job because you can't afford not to be there. You start violating your own moral and ethical principles so that you can collect a paycheck because you have to figure out how to feed yourself or your family. Or you're just stuck in a perpetual cycle of never ending grind because you are not able to actually have control over your finances. We all know what that looks like. Maybe it looks like a lot of addiction to going to Starbucks too much, addiction to getting a car you don't need and trying to impress your neighbors. Maybe it's trying to figure out how you can always have a better future and being so consumed by that goal that you actually forget what it means to have a good life right now. And the best illustration of this I ever saw was a comic, a picture of two people. And one was a person dressed in nice clothes leaning up against a really nice car. And, and it said, "That's poor." And then in the second panel, there was a picture of a happy family that were dressed simply, driving an old car, and it said, "Doesn't have to go to work." And next to that, it said, "Rich." And it's really true. When you are chasing the appearance of wealth, you don't actually get rich. And when you are content with very little, then you actually can have the liberty to generate wealth. But as we talk about this, time doesn't really factor into the equation when we're discussing money. And yet time is more valuable than money in many ways, because the truth is, if I were to say that I want to trade all of Warren Buffett's money for youth, well, Warren Buffett, the richest man, I don't know if he still is, maybe he's number two now, but anyway, if I ask the richest man on earth, who's in his 90s, to give me all of his money in exchange for being in his 30s, well, it doesn't matter if you have billions of dollars in net worth. It's not worth 60 years of your life. So time ultimately is worth more than money. And yet we don't really value our time. We whittle it away on things that don't make our lives better. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you should be a workaholic, that you should be just always focused on doing something necessary, because that is itself a pitfall. People who think that they need to micromanage every minute of their day, every minute of their life, so that they can be extremely productive, tend not to be happy or productive or anything of the sort. But we also waste a lot of time when we kind of go into debt with our time the same way we might go into debt with our money. Just like you could go to Starbucks all the time, and next thing you know, you're spending $300 or $400 a month on lattes while you run a revolving balance on your credit card. You can also go down the rabbit hole of watching 8 or 12 hours of YouTube in a week without even thinking about it, or going through your YouTube, your Google news feed, all the time, and scrolling social media and doing all these things. It's not really something you wanted to do. It's just something you are doing coincidentally because it's how you deal with boredom. You have a few moments, you don't have to be doing something, so what happens? The phone comes out, now you're scrolling. You're just going through the motions of wasting your time. And that's totally different than, for example, if I said, I want to play this particular video game. I think this game is cool. There's a new game coming out. I want to play it. So I sit down and I spend 5 hours just lost in this game world, focused on doing something in this computer game. Well, that's totally different because I chose to do it. I said, I really want to do this. Versus I just scrolled away 3 hours of my day. So sometimes you got to detox from all of this stuff, the distractions that take away your ability to spend your time in a concerted and deliberate and thoughtful way. But I want to make it clear that that's not to say that you should be trying to, that's not to say that you should be trying to eliminate things, doing things that you enjoy. That's not what I'm saying. Because if you take life too seriously, you're not going to have a good time and you're not really going to be making the most of your life. But you can also be so focused, so hyper-focused on you can be so hyper-focused on being productive that you don't actually losing my train of thought because I was fighting these things and then another guy came over. No, but all I'm saying is you can be so hyper-focused on success that you lose sight of the things that really matter, which are the experiences in life. So don't interpret the desire to be a good manager of your time as reason to be such a micromanager of your time that you never actually enjoy your life. But at the same time, you should be mindful of the fact that you don't want to waste your time on things that you don't even enjoy. So, it's kind of like how when I go to Starbucks, they give me a coffee. And the truth is that coffee is something I could make at home. So why am I doing this? It's one thing if I go to Starbucks and I'm not in town, I'm away from home or I'm on a road trip or something, that's fine. That's one thing. But if I get up in the morning and then I go to Starbucks and I pay $12 to get a cookie and a cup of coffee, when I could have just made the coffee at home and got a month's worth of cookies for the price of what one would be at Starbucks, that's really pointless. It's just a bad habit. We can have bad habits with money. We can have bad habits with time. Ultimately, the bad habits of time are just as detrimental as the bad habits of money. And I've learned that a lot because I've realized as time's gone on, I've gotten better with money. But have I really gotten better with time? And I have. I know I have. But I also know I have a long ways to go because it's really easy for me to go down the rabbit hole of wasting time on things that I don't really enjoy, just because it's easy to waste time. And I want to stop it because I want to be able to do things aimless and fun, things that I choose to do. But in order to do that, I have to give up the distractions. And it's kind of crazy to realize this because sometimes there are things I want to do that are totally fun. They're things that I really want to do. They're enjoyable things to me. It could be playing a game. It could be doing all sorts of things that are not necessary, just fun. And then I don't do those things because I was watching some stupid short videos on YouTube, right? And that's not rewarding. So try to break that habit and stop being that person. That's my goal, but that's important. So I just want to, in closing, I want to talk about one last thing, and that is debt of the spirit. So we talked about how you could go in debt with money. You can kind of go in debt with time to where you feel like you have no time because you're wasting it, or you feel like you have no money because you're wasting it. But there is a final and third aspect of kind of going in debt, if you will, and that's going into spiritual debt. And what I mean by that is meditating on things that are not wholesome, that are not uplifting. The truth is, we can accomplish a lot of things in our lives, but what really matters is the attitude we have about our lives. If I was going to tell you what my job is in real life, I could say that my job is to do admin work, like, basically be a secretary. That's basically what I am, okay? So I work for my boss. I do what he wants, okay? And there's any number of little tasks that he may give me, things that he wants done. But really, my job is not the sum of those tasks. My job is to serve. And that's really apparent when you work for someone of a higher rank. And, I have had times in my life when I had people who worked for me, as in direct reports of various numbers. But now my main thing is I represent the person who is one level up. And respect becomes really important. Because if you have somebody who works for you, who's your administrative assistant, you really want them to be a reflection of your values, your interests, your business goals, etc. And that's really kind of bringing to light a point I'm trying to make, which is that in life, it's not about the tasks we accomplish. It's not just about how we spend our money or our time that really makes a difference. It's how we make other people feel. And it's really important for us to understand this, because if you have a really bad attitude about life and you're always talking crap about people and you're always seeing negatives all around you, you're always frustrated about something, you're always at somebody's throat, you're always talking about, how the world could be a better place if somebody else did something different, etc., etc. Well, you're so busy focused on that kind of stuff, you can't really uplift other people because you're too busy finding fault in other people to be uplifting. So sometimes you got to take a step back and you got to think, how much of my life am I spending on complaining, on finding fault in other people, on pointing out why I think that they're wrong, or why I think my point of view is more accurate than theirs? Am I being an uplifting force that validates other people and helps make them feel better about themselves, or am I a detractor that's always there, kind of, maybe trying to manage my time, maybe trying to be a good steward of my resources, but ultimately being a negative person that's not inspiring, that's not cheering people on, that's not being a transmitter of positive energy, if you will. When you get down into that territory, you really are spiritually in debt because you're not doing anything good. And at that point, it doesn't matter how much good you do in terms of having better habits financially or in terms of time management, because you are not where you need to be spiritually. It doesn't matter how good of a steward you are or how competent you are if your attitude is atrocious. By the same measure, in many cases, it doesn't matter as much how successful you are if you have a really good attitude. And to illustrate this, if I said, I'm never going to have a bad attitude again in my life, I'm never going to talk bad about somebody again in my life, I'm never going to be angry at anyone again in my life, do you think that would make a difference? And the answer would be a unilateral yes. Absolutely, that would make a difference. Because if you always had a positive attitude about everything in your life for the entirety of your life, there is absolutely no contest. You would be a better person for it. And you would make a difference in other people's lives because you would amplify the good things about them instead of being a roadblock to rain on the parade. So think about those three things. Think about how you can be a better steward of your time. think of how you can be a better steward of your money. And think about how you can be a better steward of your mind. And if every day you do a little bit of something to push yourself more in the direction of reinforcing positive habits in those three categories, it's going to be good for you. And finally, to close this out, I want to talk about plants, little plants, and how powerful they can be. You can go find a weed that's growing up through a crack in the asphalt. It's not a powerful thing. It's just a plant. But with consistent, gentle pressure applied over time, a plant can move a mountain. So always remember that gentle force applied consistently is more likely to achieve monumental results than overwhelming force applied dramatically. You don't have to be the loudest voice in the room. You don't have to transform your life unrecognizably overnight. You don't have to do anything seemingly impossible. You don't have to work miracles to realize change. It's possible to take small, almost unperceivable steps in the right direction, and to do that on a daily basis. And over the course of time, you'll realize amazing results. So try to be a little bit better, a little bit wiser, and a little bit more positive every day. Worst case scenario, you'll never regret it. So, till next time, it's Jaliva Republic. I'm out. Thanks for watching.